The video you're watching now will cover the process of lubricating the inner screw on all DL top wind jacks. And it's actually a much simpler process on top winds than it is on side winds. Once you've uninstalled your jack or removed all weight from it, use two 7/16 inch wrenches to remove the nut from the bolt that connects your jack's handle to its inner screw. Pull out the bolt and remove the handle, then lift the outer tube off of the inner one and remove the bearing from the top of the outer tube. Remove the hardened washer and ball bearing from the top of your inner screw. If you don't see them, they are stuck inside your jack's outer tube, so use a table or hard surface to get them out. Next, reattach the handle with the bolt and nut you just removed so you can completely crank out the inner tube screw. Use a wire brush to remove any rust or grime that has accumulated on the screw. Apply a fair amount of grease to the entire screw, then crank the screw all the way back into the inner tube. Remove the handle and its nut and bolt so you can slip the hardened washer back on top of the screw. Then work some grease into the ball bearing before you slide that on top of the washer. Slide the outer tube over the inner tube. Grease the bearing at the top of the outer tube, then reinstall it. Finally, use your 7/16 inch wrenches to reattach the handle to the top of the screw. This video will demonstrate how to replace the swivel pin kit on both ag and marine jacks made by the Dutton-Lainson company. We offer two slightly different swivel pin kits depending on your jack's weight capacity, but the replacement process for both kits is the same. We'll start by removing the existing kit from your jack. Grab a pair of needle nose pliers and straighten the end of the cotter pin so it can be pulled out. Then remove the swivel handle, spring, and washer. To install your new kit, insert the new swivel handle all the way through the same hole and a new spring and washer. Then use the washer to compress the spring so you can insert a new cotter pin into the hole in the handle. Bend the end of the pin with your pliers so it stays in place. Then you'll be able to once more swivel your jack on and off the ground. This video will cover how to install a swivel kit onto Dutton-Lainson marine ton jacks. Depending on the rated capacity of your jack, this process can involve 4 sets of bolts and nuts, or 2, but the rest of the installation process is the same. Start by grabbing the swivel bracket washer text side up. Insert the bolts through the bottom of all the washer's holes, ensuring that the square section of each bolt completely fits into the washer's square holes. Then press the washer and bolts next to the hole on the jack's mounting bracket. Fit the clover washer around the bolts so its center protrusion is facing away from the jack. Fit the swivel plate in place, making sure that the clover washer's protrusion fits neatly in the plate's center hole. Firmly tighten a nut on each bolt using a 9/16 inch wrench. Then, if it's not already, swivel the plate so its single hole is near the top of your jack, and also ensure that the swivel pin locks into place. Install the jack on your trailer, then swivel away. This video covers how to replace the handle on Dutton-Lainson sidewind tongue jacks. If you own a marine jack with a capacity of 1,000 pounds or less that was manufactured after the 33rd week of 1997, start by prying off your jack's top cap with a flathead screwdriver. Rotate the handle as far as you can after setting a 3/16 inch diameter punch on top of the roll pin that's driven through it. Then use the punch and a hammer to pound the pin out of the handle. Use your fingers or some needle nose pliers to remove the roll pin you just drove out. Remove the handle from the jack, tapping on it with your hammer if necessary. If it fell out when you removed the handle, place the handle bushing back in its hole with its flat side facing down. Set the upper miter gear next to this bushing, then slide the handle through the hole on the other side of the jack. Line up the flat side of the handle with the flat side of the miter gear's hole, then push the handle completely through the jack. Drive a new roll pin evenly through the handle's small hole. Work some grease into both miter gears by cranking the handle, then reinstall the top cap. If you own a larger capacity marine jack, 1,250 to 2,000 pounds, an ag jack, or the DLX jack made after the 42nd week of 1996, the process is identical except for a few key differences. First, after you've partially pounded out the roll pin on your old handle, you'll have to forcibly turn it until the pin actually breaks and part of it falls out. Then drive out the other piece of the pin in the same direction you were pounding before. Also, when installing your new handle, there aren't any flat edges on the handle or upper miter gear to align, but you will have to make sure you hold the upper miter gear against the handle bushing with its slot facing up. Then you can slide the handle through the jack, line up the slot with the hole in the handle, and pound a new roll pin through the slot and the hole until it's flush with the gear. This video will show you how to replace both 6812B and 6813A miter gear kits on all styles of Dutton-Lainson tongue jacks. We'll start with the 6812B kit, which is for marine jacks with a weight capacity of 1,000 pounds or less, manufactured after the 33rd week of 1997. And it contains the following parts: a lower miter gear, upper miter gear, iron bearing, handle bushing, roll pin, and a dowel pin. Start by removing the top cap from your jack with a flat blade screwdriver. Rotate the handle as far as a 3/16 inch diameter punch set on the roll pin will allow, then use it and a hammer to drive the roll pin completely out of the handle. Remove the handle from the jack, tapping it out with a hammer if needed. Next, use your fingers and a pair of needle nose pliers to remove the upper miter gear, handle bushing, lower miter gear, and the roll pin you just drove out. Turn the wheel at the bottom of your jack until the dowel pin is aligned with the small hole on the side of the jack. Then continue holding onto the wheel while you use the hole to remove the dowel pin. Slide the jack's inner tube out from inside the large tube. If you see 3 washers on top of the inner tube screw, remove them and set them aside. If they aren't there, they are stuck inside of the jack's outer tube, so use a table or other hard surface to get them out. Next, examine the iron bearing at the top of the outer tube. It is only necessary to replace this part if it's severely worn or has broken. If it has, take a hammer and knock it out, then use your hammer and a 7/16 inch socket and short extension to pound in a new one. Next, use your punch or hand to completely crank out the inner tube screw. If necessary, scrub any rust accumulation off of the screw with a wire brush. Work automotive or marine grease into the entire thread, then turn the screw back into the nut. Reinstall the washers on top of it with a layer of grease in between each one, and also ensuring that the nylon washer is sandwiched by the hardened ones. Slide the inner tube all the way back inside of the outer one so the screw fits through its hole in the outer tube. Once again, use the small hole on the jack side to install a new dowel pin evenly centered through the screw. Fit the slot of a new lower miter gear over the dowel pin, then install a new handle bushing with its flat side facing down. Set a new upper miter gear next to the bushing, then slide the handle through the iron bearing and align its flat with the flat in the miter gear hole until the handle is all the way in place. Finally, pound a new roll pin evenly through the small hole on the handle. Work a fair amount of grease into both miter gears by cranking the handle, then press the top cap firmly back in place. Now we'll go over the process for the 6813A kit. designed for DL Marine and Ag jacks with capacities between 1,250 and 2,000 pounds, and made after the 42nd week of 1996. This kit comes with an upper miter gear, lower miter gear, handle bushing, shaft bushing, flat washer, roll pin, and a dowel pin. After you remove the top cap, again angle the handle as much as your punch will let you, then knock out the roll pin as far as possible. Forcibly twist the handle until the roll pin actually breaks. Then use your punch to pound out the remaining piece in the same direction you were pounding before. Next, remove the jack's handle, both miter gears, and both pieces of the broken roll pin. Hold onto the wheel of your jack as you remove the dowel pin, the flat washer, and the handle bushing. If you have an older jack, you may see an iron bearing instead of the flat washer you just saw and the shaft bushing we will show you next. But we will replace that iron bearing with the new shaft bushing and new flat washer that are included in the kit. So, remove the inner tube from the outer and the shaft bushing from the screw, then unscrew it all the way. Brush off any rust accumulation, grease the entire screw, then turn the screw back into the nut. Repack grease into the ball bearing on top of the screw, reinstall it, then place a new shaft bushing on top of it, chamfer side up. Slide the inner tube all the way back up the outer tube, lay a new flat washer on top of the screw, then hold it in place with an evenly spaced dowel pin. Fit the slot of a new lower miter gear over the pin, then put a new handle bushing in its hole with its flat end facing down. Hold the upper miter gear against the bushing so its slot is facing up. Then slide the handle through everything. Line up the slot on the miter gear with the hole in the handle, then pound a new roll pin into it until it's flush with the gear. Apply grease to this area, then seal it all up with the top cap.